Preparing the live stream. Okay.
And let's just start out with a few minutes or a good portion of the theme, which I really love,
Okay.
of Warehouse 13.
Alrighty. Preparing the live stream. Okay.
And
Welcome to Matinee Minutia. Please take your seats. The show is about to begin. Why, hello there, Mr. Smellie, and how are you this fine evening?
pretty good. A little bit rainy here in upstate New York and Spuds Flats here, but well, we put out some buckets and dishes in the various places where it usually leaks, and well, Gertie says we're doing okay.
Yeah, we got the rain jackets out, and we're not quite ready for the life preservers, but it was Easter recently, and well, we dropped off some leftovers to Mama Billy, and we had more than our share full, and the freezer's just spilling out now. So I am very much ready for spring, and the warmer temperatures. They're coming and going, and I'm just ready for them to stay. How about you?
Well, me too. Suddenly today, I just looked around and noticed how many trees are really starting to bud out. You could start to see some green out there, and so I know it's just a few warm days down the road. They're we're really gonna start seeing some green.
You know, we finally arrived at the point in our home ownership we decided to do more than just put our mail name on the mailbox. We actually put down a wad and brought some plants home and started to put our name on the place. And the neighbors are watching and wondering what's going to happen.
Well, always leave the neighbors mystified, DJ. Always leave them mystified. That's the best way.
It
Oh,
sure.
look at your husband's in the old chat room. In fact, before we start, let me just say who's in here, because we got Aunt Tudor, our favoriteest Baltimore personality, listening in. We got your husband Billy Starsage. We've got our pal Tommy Hash Browns. And looks like possibly RT Cruiser from around the world, exactly opposite us in Australia.
Hmm. The land down under and proof that there is a tomorrow.
Well, as long it seems that way, doesn't it? Yeah.
It does. So along with spring comes summer, and I heard a rumor that our showgirl here, Gertie, she might have been to the west there during a summer camp session. Is that true, Gertie? Did you spend a summer
Huh?
at a scout camp?
Summer in a scout camp. What, you mean where the stupid show was?
Well,
South
what else?
Dakota?
Yes, the
The
Dakotas.
Dakotas, yeah. Where Warehouse 13 is. You know, listen, I was there. Summer camp. Listen, I never saw this stupid warehouse on this stupid show. But anyways, I don't want to talk about that. What I want to talk about is how wonderful the lead is. What's his name? McClintock. Oh, he sounds like he should have a 1970s detective TV series. Anyways, I think he's beautiful, and they should have cast me opposite him. That's all I'm saying. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Gertie. Well, why don't you go downstairs and do your intro? Fine, fine. Rush me around. Yeah, fine. Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Here we go.
Agents Bering and Latimer both serve in the President's Protection Detail. One's a by-the-book book nerd. The other, a seat-of-his-pants comic nerd. During a routine operation, the two witness the thievery of a bizarre object. The trail leads them to become the latest recruits of a secret society bent on keeping powerful artifacts out of the wrong hands. They say old agents don't retire, they just put in for a transfer. Let's head to South Dakota, where there's a sweet little B&B. It's time for Warehouse 13. Hit it, boys.
What do you get when you take a dash of the silver screen, a pinch of golden oldies, and a smidgen of streaming? It's time for Matinee Minutia with your hosts DJ and Toppie.
Alrighty, so this takes place in the Wild West, and it's got a flair of sci-fi to it. But before we actually discuss the show itself, we want to put your mind in the frame of what was going on at that time.
Yeah, set the stage. Tell us what was going on in 2009 when this here show started.
Righty, so the world or U.S. in 2009, eventful year. U.S. Airways Flight 1549 lost power shortly after taking off from LaGuardia, New York City. Forced the plane to have a crash landing, but it was successfully landed on the Hudson River, and they made a movie about it with Tom Hanks. All 155 passengers and crew were rescued with no casualties. In 2009 also, Circuit City, the big box store that was kind of the successor to Radio Shack. Well, they were the number 2 electronics retailer then, but they announced the closing of all 567 of its U.S. stores. And that meant 34,000 people were out of work that year.
Oh my God. Did this ever trouble you? You know, honestly, as a podcaster, especially really early on, I kind of relied on Radio Shack for a number of things. Do you miss Radio Shack or?
I do, but I had a family member that actually worked for him, so it's kind of a chapter of our history. But I will say that the first flat screen monitor I ever bought was from a Circuit City, so I have fond memories, and they may or may not have had a line of credit with them at one point.
Well, you know, that's how a lot of people start a credit history. Anyways, continue.
Oh, right. So in 2009 also, the 43rd president was elected, Mr. Barack Obama, actually 44, and he was sworn in, and also to honor the 200th anniversary of the birth of Abraham Lincoln, the U.S. Mint launched a series of pennies commemorating 4 stages in Lincoln's life.
Let's see. Stage 1, log cabin. Stage 2, writing on shovel with charcoal. No, I'm sure that wasn't it.
Then he met that lovely lady. Okay, so the Peanut Corporation, yes, that was their real name, a peanut butter processing company, were found to be guilty in 9 deaths and more than 600 poisonings due to salmonella. They filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy just days after its CEO used the Fifth Element. We're talking movies here. Fifth Amendment.
That's hysterical, DJ. That's hysterical.
They used the Fifth Amendment to avoid questioning by Congress. Now, I will remember that year because for a year, Peter Pan was off the shelves.
Well, I remember that too, but holy cripes, I didn't know it was that long ago. It seems just like yesterday.
Let's see. A big year, 2009. New Mexico became the 15th state to abolish the death penalty. Yay! Vermont legalized same sex marriage after the legislature overrode a veto by the governor. Well, good thing they did the right thing. Pixar had their 10th feature film, Up. And it had a voice by, one of the Mary Tyler Moore casts. I forget his name right
Ed
now.
Asner. Ed Asner.
Yes, Ed Asner did one of the lead characters' voices, and that film was released in theaters in '09. Governor John Lynch signed a bill allowing same-sex marriage in New Hampshire. So Vermont and New Hampshire, we're getting a pattern here.
That was a big year for us.
Yes, it was. And New Hampshire was the 6th state at the time to allow same-sex marriage. Boy, in the long list here, I'm going to run out of breath. Maybe not. Analog television broadcasts ended in the US in 2009. It was a period we called digital conversion. And the Federal Communications Commission required all full power stations to send their signals digitally. They really wanted the analog signal band for military use. That's why. Yes. So also in 2009, the death of American entertainment, Michael Jackson, the king of pop, it triggered an outpouring of worldwide grief. I remember when that happened, I was at work and it was on all the TVs. Online reactions to the event crippled several major websites and services, including Twitter. And the abundance of people accessing the web addresses pushed internet traffic to unprecedented levels. Just a few more items for 2009, because it was a big year. Sonia Sotomayor took the judicial oath and became the 3rd woman and the first Hispanic to serve on the United States Supreme Court. Yay! And rounding it out, the Walt Disney Company, the Mouse House, they were the parent company of ABC. Well, in 2009, Toppie, you'll remember this, they acquired Marvel Entertainment.
Well, I'll tell you what. In the story of Marvel Comics, which I go way back with, way back, that was a thing. And in the chat room, Tommy Hash Browns is saying, "Boo." He is famously not a fan of Walt Disney acquiring a lot of universes, as in the Marvel universe. I kind of get it. There's problems. Let's talk about celebrity deaths, shall we? Because that's uplifting. Ricardo Montalban, at the age of 88, passed away that year. We know him so wonderfully for Star Trek II. And DJ and I and Tommy have it on good authority, according to the director of Star Trek II, as he said when we attended Farpoint, this just was real, folks. Okay? Enough with the it's not real. It was real. Also, passing away was Paul Harvey, famous radio broadcaster. Ron Silver, an actor from Silkwood. Oh, God, You Devil. Also passing away, Natasha Richardson. She was in Nell. She was in The Parent Trap. And it's a tragic end. She died too soon. She was the wife of Liam Neeson and the daughter of Vanessa Redgrave. It was a skiing accident, for heaven's sakes. Anyways, Marilyn Chambers at the age of 56. Beloved, infamous, but nonetheless an adult film star in so many rated RX movies that were actually on film.
We call them entrepreneurs nowadays.
That's right. And Bea Arthur, a legendary actress from The Golden Girls and Maude. Dom DeLuise. I sure did like Dom. He was in Haunted Honeymoon, Cannonball Run, Smokey and the Bandit, a million things. And we got David Carradine, most probably well known from being in 1972's TV series Kung Fu. But he was in Oh, just a million feature films, and his career spanned more than decades. Famously, the son of the Carradine, John Carradine. You would have seen him in Grapes of Wrath all those years ago, and John Carradine kind of had a career in monster movies, don't you know? Ed McMahon, hi at age 86, a beloved host of Star Search and The Tonight Show. You know, the Star Search, it was sort of the forerunner of So You Think You Can Dance, or So You Think You Can Sing, or You Think You Can Bake a Cake. I don't know, all those sort of reality shows. Farrah Fawcett, no. Pinup model and actress from Charlie's Angels.
And former wife of Lee Majors.
There you go. We just did the Bionic Man. I mean, the $6 Million Man. Oh, and as you said, Michael Jackson. Those are. That was a big year for deaths, 1992. So, DJ, Warehouse 13 television series airing on Mondays at 9 p.m. on Sci-Fi. What was it up against? What other shows? What was competing with it?
Well, interestingly enough, this is, just at the dawn of the age before things were, exclusively streaming like they are nowadays. I don't even think that Netflix had their first original series yet. But
right. I mean, were they still like you had to mail it in, right? You would get the disc in the mail. Was that?
Oh, that's a good point. When I moved back to New York in '09, ironically, I was still doing the discs in the mail service.
Yeah.
And so you were probably very right there. But Warehouse 13 was on the SyFy Channel, and it was actually the SyFy Channel's first new show since their rebranding. Now, before this, they actually were spelled SCI-FI, like the the genre of novels. But they needed something they could trademark. So, like that coworker you've got who wants their kid to have a special spelled name. Yeah, Sci-Fi, SYFY. Anyways, Warehouse 13, Mondays at 9. Opposite it on TV, competing for your attention, was Dancing with the Stars, Ed McMahon's grandchild, I guess. And over on the Big Brother eyeball there, CBS, they had 2.5 Men, which then still had Charlie Sheen. NBC, the Peacock, where you can find Warehouse 13 online right now for free. Peacock TV.
Oh, I've been watching it on IBM, Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I've been watching it.
Oh, okay. It's in a few places. NBC had their own kind of a police drama show. It's called Trauma. And let's see now. The Warehouse 13 was Sci-Fi's third largest debut to date, and it garnered 3.5 million viewers. Its first 6 episodes were all among the top 10 highest rated series episodes on Sci-Fi. And episode 6, which was called Burnout, drew 4.4 million viewers, and that set the record for Sci-Fi's highest rated show at the time.
Yeah, I don't know if that still holds the record or not. So Warehouse 13 came out, and it was a hit on cable.
Not in the very beginning.
No.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
So, here at the Marionette Theater, we are a venue for many a celebrated thing, including vaudeville in our days past, and we even had a magician. And one of the people that helped make this is the director, the storyteller, and sometimes it's a producer. So the person behind Warehouse 13, the creator, was Jane Espinson. Now, she also did some writing for Star Trek The Next Generation and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV series, not the movie. And
Yeah, and a lot of I could see the relationship there. I mean, she wrote some good stuff for Buffy, and you can just see how I think she took what she learned and she was interested in starting something new, and came up with Warehouse 13, pitched it, and they went to work on it.
yeah, and she also worked on the later season of Torchwood, the British sci-fi series that was sort of a spin-off of Doctor Who, and it was essentially the American version. They brought the cast to the States, and if I'm not mistaken, that was produced for the American movie channel Showtime at the time.
Ah, all right.
So, with your permission, I'd like to treat the members of our audience to a brief clip about some of the casting for the characters.
All right. Or could we play the? Don't we gotta?
Oh, I'm sorry, we have the promo. Haha.
Yeah, let's play the promo.
All right, backing up.
Two top government agents have just been reassigned to the middle of nowhere.
Welcome to Warehouse 13.
What is this place?
I like to think of it as America's attic.
That's cool.
You're both joining me as fellow gatherers and protectors of secrets.
That was just the beginning. Now, the mysteries get bigger.
That chip allows you to see the future.
The secrets get deeper.
Just how long is this list of things we don't know?
If somebody's walking through walls, the government needs to know how.
And the investigations get hotter.
Knock, knock.
How about moon?
Who are you? Are we talking about invisibility?
Saul, you want a piece of me? You take this seriously?
Scar!
You go, girl.
Warehouse 13.
Hey, let's talk about the other main guy responsible for the show, the showrunner, Jack Kenny. And he's an openly gay American writer, director, actor, and producer. He signed on as the showrunner in 2008 and became the executive producer of Warehouse 13. He produced 63 episodes of the series. He wrote a lot of the episodes. He directed a lot of the episodes. And, well, he even had a cameo in the series finale. He's really the driving force behind the show. And when you read about his history, there's well, you can see where he was interested in the kinds of subject matter, in the kinds of fantasy shows that were like Warehouse 13. He was a big fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and you can see even as he wanted to create a bit of a universe where even other TV shows that related would come in and be part of Warehouse 13. And one of those shows was Eureka, which I don't know a whole lot about, and I never saw it, but characters from Warehouse 13 would be on Eureka, and some characters from Eureka would be on Warehouse 13. And he had this idea, that's very popular today, of a shared universe. And there was a lot of exciting things I think he put into the show, even tiny little things like every time there's a scene and they want to tell you where it's happening on Warehouse 13, they say, Russia, blah, 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 blah. They don't just have a title, they have a sound effect, and they do something clever in animating the title in some way. It's playful. There's a lot of little things he did that helped the show be a little unique and well, just playful.
Yeah, and Jane Espinson, she was basically involved with the pilot And a lot of people will know that when a pilot for a TV show is made, it's kind of like a movie. So they have to, wait to see if it's popular with the test audience. And then the studio decides, okay, we like the pilot and you've been picked up. You're under contract now. We're going to make a show. And that's where Jack Kenny gets introduced because now they need somebody to be in charge of producing this weekly thing.
Right. So I really like the feel of this series. It's very a lot of people compare it to X-Files.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say right now, I think X-Files was a better show.
Mm-hmm.
But Warehouse 13 was a much more playful show in a lot of ways. I like it probably as much as I liked X-Files at this point. I got to tell you, when I first started, and I'm brand new to the show, never saw it before. And I started, and I was a little put off by how flip it was. And I didn't buy it. I felt like, well, this is just a silly show. But the more I watched, the more I bought into how, I mean, they did silly, but they did it with gusto. They were into it. And once I realized they weren't just being stupid, that yes, it had a very playful atmosphere. The lead actor, Eddie McClintock, his character as Pete Latimer, was pretty broad. But after a while, I said, you know what? This is all working for me. I really like this. Where did you come across this show, DJ?
Well, this actually ends up being a show that has a special place in my heart, as our topics here at the Marriott often do. My introduction to this show was just after moving back home, back to my home state from a decade away. My husband-to-be and I were moving in together. And at the time, it had been a number of years since my latest sci-fi show, and I'm a Star Trek nerd, went off the air. So I was desperately clamoring for a new show to watch because, even if you watch soap operas, you've got something you're following. And when they cancel your show, well, that's just terrible. Here we are moving in together and we learn about this show, Warehouse 13, and we tune into it. And it becomes sort of the song that we fell in love to because here we move into our first place together and we're getting into watching this show. And one of the things that you'll learn as you start watching Warehouse 13 is some of the characters, their mannerisms, and the guy that's basically in charge of the warehouse, the lovable kind of curator. Artie is his name. He's a heavy set gentleman that likes his sweaters, but he also likes his baked goods. And when Micah and Pete first arrive at the warehouse, he tries to ply them with sweets. He offers them a plate of oatmeal scotchies. And for those unfamiliar, oatmeal scotchies are oatmeal cookies that have butterscotch morsels. So
Numbers. What I liked about Artie and his food is before mission, he had this like doctor's bag or a little case. It looked like a doctor's bag, but maybe a little bigger. And he would run around his office there in Warehouse 13, and he would like, oh, I might need this. And he'd put it in his bag. Oh, I might need this special thing. And then he'd tuck into his refrigerator and say, oh, lunch, and put it into his bag. He never forgot his lunch, whatever mission he was about to run out on. So I appreciated that.
And just picking up on the cookies, that's actually something that we did. We like to do kind of a movie party, theme parties, and we've done that before where we'll have something that's served in the movie if we've watched it before. We would make oatmeal scotchies for a while there. And we would watch Warehouse 13. That would be our routine. But also in the beginning, Micah said that she doesn't eat sweets because she's a government agent and she's trying to keep her figure. And later on in that same episode, she's hunkered down very cozily in the bed and breakfast, and she's stressed out. She's eating cookies.
So one of the things I appreciated were the characters, and it had Pete Latimer. He was the head Secret Service agent. He bent the rules, and he was pretty broad, and he was silly and funny. Then there was Micah, who you just mentioned. She was kind of more by the book. Then there was Artie, who was kind of in charge of the warehouse and kind of an absent-minded professor type, kind of. And then later on, there was Claudia, and she was a tech expert, and some woman who sort of was kind of like behind the scenes and kind of large and in charge. And she portrayed Mrs. Irene Frederick. So as the show goes on, the characters got better and better written, and as happens on TV series, they become more solid, and they become, okay, this is Pete Latimer, and this is Micah, and they became more solid characters with differentiating characteristics, and I loved the interaction between all of them. For example, Claudia, who was the tech expert, well, she sort of became the adopted daughter of Artie, and Artie became like a father figure to Claudia, and that all happened over time. And you can see how the writers were looking at the characters and how the actors gave more of themselves into it, and like a lot of great long-running shows, their characters became more defined and their relationships became more defined. So I really loved that about it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to treat our audience to a clip here of Mr. Eddie McClintock, who plays Pete, and he's describing how they got cast in their parts.
When we got to the test, usually there's 2 of each character. Well, when we walked in, there was like 7 or 8 Micahs and 7 or 8 Petes. So you just kind of go, oh, they have no idea what they want. We're just a number here, and my chance of getting this job is 1 in 8. And then the guy that went in right before me, the director came out and he said, "Hey, come here." And he put his arm around this guy and he walked down the hall with this guy, and I was like, that's it. Joanne was sitting. She was like, "Dude, come hither." And I sat and talked to her, and she kind of talked me down a little bit, and she's like, and she's pretty, so it's always nice to have a pretty girl pay attention in the midst of trauma. And next thing you know, they
pulled us in the room together.
Pulled us in together, and we had just been sitting out there talking for a while. So
I made a mistake. I was supposed to say showboat, and I said showbot. And he looks at me and he stops and he starts doing the robot.
No, showbot.
He kept going. Like,
and then I did
stop,
a Michael I'm not.
So I tried to kind of get him back on track with the scene and everything. And
she like
I hit you and was like, "What are you doing?" And
kind of
like, just kind of urged him back towards the lines and the dialogue.
Much like our job.
Yeah. And we left the room, and then they said, "That's the show." There.
Mark Stern was like, "There it is."
Yeah.
We need to look.
We need a crazy person and a sensible person.
And so
I did like their chemistry. I think it had a great deal to do with how well the show worked, and just like X-Files, the actors who portrayed Sculler and Mulder, they had chemistry, and these two had chemistry. It was different from Scully and Mulder, but it was very appealing. I liked it.
Yeah. Now, the character of Pete Latimer, he was played by Eddie McClintock, and he was rule-bending Secret Service. Now, Eddie McClintock was born in Ohio, the Buckeye State. He was almost 30 before he began acting in more major roles like Warehouse 13. And he was a former production assistant, so the guy who was getting things done around the studio. And his hobbies included surfing, painting, and drumming. So sort of the comic and the prankster. He appeared in 3 one-season shows for Fox in '98. There was a show called Holding the Baby. In '99, he appeared in Fox's one-season series Stark Raving Mad. What was special about that show is it had Neil Patrick Harris and Tony Shalhoub. Let's see.
Tony Shalhoub. You're such a Shalhoub.
And in '03, McClintock starred in a show called AUSA, which stood for Assistant United States Attorney. And then in '06, just a little before he got into Warehouse 13 a few years later, he appeared in a show for ABC called Crumbs. And this show had Fred Savage, from the Wonder Years, and everybody's favorite Saturday Night Live star, Jane Curtin. And it was about a gay Hollywood screenwriter who returned to his hometown. So a lot of, guest of the week roles for Friends.
He's immensely appealing in this role. I think, he could handle the drama, and he was very endearing as kind of this dopey guy. I mean, really, Eddie McClintock is a little dopey, but in a very appealing way. And he worked well with the character of Micah. And Micah was played by Joanne Kelly. And she played the by-the-book agent. And she was born in Canada. And her history is, and she did a lot of television. She was in a Showtime series called Jeremiah. You might have seen her there. And that show was created by J. Michael Straczynski, who created Babylon 5. Joanne Kelly had a recurring guest role on Slings and Arrows. You might remember that from 2006. She was in Vanished for one season on Fox, about a senator wife that goes missing. She was on the Dresden Files in 2007 on NBC. 3 appearances on that show. So that's a bit of her history. They were good together, these 2 actors. And the third guy that kind of rounded out it was Artie, the special agent in charge at the warehouse. He's portrayed very memorably by Saul Rubinek. And he was born... Oh, wait a minute. That's his character. Sorry. He started out his professional career as a child actor in theater and radio in Canada. By the way, this show was done in Canada. That's where they filmed everything. As a lot of series, found, it was cheaper to go to Toronto and film there than it was to do it in America. So his work on U.S. and Canadian television spanned for 4 decades. So you may have seen him in a lot of things. But in 1987, he wrote and produced something called So Many Miracles, a book and documentary about an account of his parents' survival growing up in Poland during World War II. Also, here's another place where you may have seen Saul Rubinek. and that was on Frasier. He was on 15 episodes of Frasier. So that kind of completes the main trio. And there's some additional actors. The only one, DJ, I want to make sure we at least mention
Mhm.
is an actress named CCH Pounder.
Oh,
Ha!
all right.
Just go tell us her, because she's a reoccurring character on the show. She's not billed in the opening, but
Mhm.
she appears throughout the entire run as a recurring character, an actress named CCH Pounder.
Yes, with a name like that, she is quite memorable in her scenes. And she was born, CCH stands for Carol Christine Hilaria, last name Pounder. She's a Guyanese, so she's from the African continent. American act, well, her family was, so she's a Guyanese American actress, and in her over 5-decade career, now you see her on Warehouse 13, but she's had a career and a lifetime before this. She appeared in numerous plays, films, TV shows, and miniseries, and she specialized in portraying women enriched with positive attributes, women of power. They were women with strength, confidence, integrity, and strong-mindedness. Now, CCH Pounder, she appeared in 22 episodes of Warehouse 13 as Mrs. Irene, which we didn't learn until later, Frederick. So most people just called her Mrs. Frederick. And in movies, she was in Nurse Blake in 1979's All That Jazz. This was her first film, her screen debut. Most recently, she was in 2019 Godzilla movie. It was called King of the Monsters. And the greater part of her career has been on television. So it's all been on, mostly have been on the smaller screen. It included 13 episodes of a show called Women in Prison. Her character was Dawn Murphy. That was in 87 and 88. And then there was 24 episodes of, well, I think it might be
ER.
George Clooney's show, ER.
Yeah.
And that was Dr. Angela Hicks between 94 and 97, the early days of ER, I think. She was also in 5 episodes of Millennium as Dr. Cheryl Andrews from 90.
Millennium was by the same people who did X-Files. It
Oh,
was
that-
very short-lived.
Yeah, that name was familiar. I was wondering about that. She also had 89 episodes of The Shield. That's a Baltimore-based police drama show. And her character was Claudette Wims. And she was on there between 02 and 08. And she's currently playing Dr. Loretta Wade. Now, here's a little bit of fan play here. And she is in this show with Star Trek actor, well, not originally, but sci-fi actor Scott Bakula, NCIS New Orleans from 2014.
Good Lord. NCIS, all of those police procedural shows. Who knew they would take over network TV the way they have?
Well, you know,
Good
if you
Lord.
had asked my grandmother, she probably would have told you because that's all she watched.
Well, they're tremendously popular. Apparently, I've never seen a single one, but that doesn't mean anything other than I haven't had access to cable, to network TV.
Well, I think at very least I'm going to watch NCIS New Orleans because it's got Scott Bakula, Captain Archer, of course, from Star Trek Enterprise.
Man.
And now I know Mrs. Frederick's on there. I mean, I've got to watch.
That's right. DJ, a lot of people compare this, say that Warehouse 13 was a mix of the X-Files. It was a mix of Moonlighting. Do you remember Moonlighting?
Vaguely, I remember seeing some of the reruns when it was just recently off the air, and that was the
Sybil
beginning.
Shepherd
Mhm.
and what's his face, Bruce.
I like to call him Demi Moore's ex-husband, Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis, when he had hair, or at least it was a hair piece. Anyways, the playful repartee between Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis is compared to Warehouse 13. And also Billy Starsage, your very husband, DJ, says in the chat room that another series it was very much like was Friday the 13th TV show, which was kind of also, it wasn't a warehouse, but it was just a collection of weird things that they possessed and were watching out for. And in other words, Warehouse 13 is a warehouse full of weird things that have these strange powers that people covet. And the people of Warehouse 13 just want to store them and keep them away from the people that would misuse them. So that idea, some might say is ripped right out of Friday the 13th, the TV show. That's what Billy Starsage says. And well, yeah, I mean, that was a similar concept. So a lot of sources came into establishing this show.
And I don't recall the original channel or station or network, what have you, that Friday the 13th aired on, but I do remember the first time that I got to watch the Friday the 13th series was in reruns on the SyFy Channel in its early days, when some of the staple programs at the time, because they weren't making their own original shows yet, were things like The Bionic Woman.
Billy just posted a really interesting couple of pictures. It shows the library from Friday the 13th, the TV show, and then it shows the warehouse. And well, I mean, the similarity is undisputable. But I think that they were different enough TV shows. They had that one thing in common. I'll give you that. Also, one of the things about Warehouse 13, and Billy mentions this too, is there was a steampunk vibe, and it may have been used in Friday the 13th, but it was really used in very freely in Warehouse 13. A lot of the gizmos that had the steampunk vibe. And how do we describe steampunk, TJ? What is that?
I think that steampunk would be a present day imagining of the romance of the early days of technology, like the Industrial Revolution crossing over into the 20th century. So we imagine, everything. Of course, we have the misfortune of some people with artistic ability imagining it's this item, but with lots of gears glued onto it, and that's not
real. No, but the steampunk vibe involves gears and coiled springs and leather and tactile. I can't describe it. It's very hard to describe.
It's almost like Jules Verne.
Yes, H.G. Wells. Oh, the H.G. Wells Time Machine in the movie that I'm forgetting, that I'm forgetting. But that chair that he sat in that sent him back in time, that's a perfect example of steampunk.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, by the way, did you happen to see the episode of Warehouse 13 where the characters are all turned into one-dimensional steampunk versions of themselves? Did you see that episode?
I remember it when it originally aired, but I haven't watched it recently enough for it to be fresh in my mind.
It was wonderfully animated. An example of how far they were willing to take Warehouse 13 into the comedic environment. this was a show that could be many things, and the showrunner understood that. It could be dramatic. It could be, there could be life and death, high stakes, and then they could do maybe a weird Christmas episode that just touched just the right bases. And then they did a steampunk weirdo show where they're in two dimensions, and the entire, well, I haven't seen the whole thing, but I gather much of the episode is animated with the voices of the actors, and very obviously very broad, very comedic, but they were willing to go there, and they went there, but it wasn't stupid or silly. They really supported it. I mean, they went down that road, but they went down that road with vim and vigor. I guess that's what I want to say.
Mhm. Yeah, and speaking of H.G. Wells that you were talking a moment ago, that actually gets incorporated. We actually get a character on Warehouse 13. It had a few recurring appearances, and that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about the storytelling of Warehouse 13. You had the ability to use history to tell a story through an artifact.
Yes.
And we learned that everybody assumes that the great author H.G. Wells, it had to have been a man, but we get this wonderful character on Warehouse 13 who we come to learn as Helena, but she is H.G. Wells. So maybe what we've learned from history isn't the truth.
Wasn't that wonderful? That was a nice bit. That really was.
It certainly was, and for those who haven't gotten to see it yet, that's one incentive to check out Warehouse 13 is they take liberty with history, and it's not necessarily unbelievable. I mean, they even go so far as to explain that H.G. Wells invented this time machine to save the daughter that she lost.
A lot of people have said, like, I watched this show and it was great and it was entertaining, but I also learned a lot about history.
Mhm.
And I think that's integral to the writers and the showrunner, where they wanted it grounded in history. So I got a list for you, DJ. We can't go into all of them,
Oh, sure, right?
DJ, but I got a list of the things that were in Warehouse 13. All
Okay.
right. So let me just breeze down them, and I'm gonna mention the things that catch my eye. Okay, here we go. Abraham Lincoln's top hat is in Warehouse 13. It imbues. Okay, so all of these things in Warehouse 13, folks, what you got to know is, in a way that we don't really know why, they're imbued with special powers that come from the person that owned them. Not that they intended them to have it, but it's almost like a lingering thing. They have this object, it's part of their life. In this case, Abraham Lincoln's top hat. And sometimes somehow becomes imbued with a part of them. It's a little magical. It's never really explained. But so let me continue. Abraham Lincoln's top hat imbued the wearer with the overwhelming urge to free nearby African American people, believing them to be slaves, an impulse which apparently got the character Pete into hot water with Mrs. Frederick. Here we go. Agatha Christie's, she's a writer of many mystery novels. Agatha Christie's typewriter. Well, she outlined dark plots on that typewriter. It was first seen in the pilot episode, and its effect being mentioned in the website. And, well, I don't know what the effect was. So I'm reading off of notes. I'm not sure where they're going to go. Oh, lordy. Alfred Hitchcock's showerhead, the prop from the movie Psycho, well, that apparently causes overwhelming fear. That object is in the warehouse. Let's just keep going down. We're still in the A's. Let me get at least to the B's. Bob Dylan's bus transfer. His transition from acoustic to electric caused a major change in music caused by the uproar of his fans. This bus transfer, I guess it's a ticket, was imbued with the power to transfer energy, used to transfer the energy of Francis Farmer's music box from Claire into Micah. I guess that happened in an episode. Let me just spin down here. There's so many. I mean, there's hundreds because many of these were only mentioned on the show, and only a few got actually to be part of the show. So a lot of them were only mentioned. Oh, well, Harry Houdini. So he had some magic props. The warehouse is shown to have a small section devoted to Houdini alone, containing many of the props he used in his tricks, including the water tank and his ball, chain, and straitjacket in his famous specs. That's very steampunk. If the props are artifacts or merely used as a display is not said. I'm not coming up with great. I'm just doing this off the fly, folks. I'm not coming up with great examples. All right. Here's one that totally was in several episodes. It's a pearl necklace. It's featured in a couple of very important episodes because a pearl gets placed into the ear of a victim in Warehouse 13, and their mind is able to be controlled. So the pearl necklace allows the wearer to teleport at will, worn by Mrs. Frederick, and responsible for her ability to pop in and out of a room. All right, now that's a thing in Warehouse 13 because she comes and goes and it's never explained, like, oh, she's here. Oh, well, she's gone. And it's never explained, but it's because she's wearing these pearls.
And Toppie, there's a terrific moment where Artie shows up just unannounced in a room that Pete's in an episode. And Pete literally says to Artie, "Did you just Mrs. Frederick me?"
It's an adjective or a verb. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Okay, so, the Trojan horse, that is in the quarantine zone of the warehouse. We see it in the opening credits.
That's
I'm just
quite a list there, Toppie.
Yeah, one last thing. Walt Disney's paintbrush. According to the label of this artifact, the brush animates directly from the painter's imagination. Anything painted by the brush becomes 3D, appears to be alive, and looks and behaves in a cartoonist fashion. This was used in a plot by Pete to paint his shoes, which quickly ran away. So they had fun with history. They really made up backstories for these hundreds of objects from history. And it's a nifty bit of trivia to just kind of follow them.
And like a lot of shows that have a secret agent or a government type, they of course go around with their holsters and their sidearms. But because H.G. Wells was involved with the past of the warehouse, they adopt a sort of a mentality of non-violence. They actually have a weapon that does not shoot bullets. It's electrified. It was invented in Victorian times, and it's literally called a Tesla. So it's the Warehouse 13 version of a ray gun. So
yeah, that was cool. A nifty looking prop. Again, a steampunk design. Very cool looking.
Before we go ahead and mention the other programs you might enjoy, I thought I'd just take a moment to mention some of the appeal of the show. And in hindsight, I think possibly what caused me to fall for, to enjoy Warehouse 13 so much is that My school experience was at the early days of the internet. The whisperings of the dial-up were just in my ear. We didn't do away with the card catalog just yet. So I was one of those kids who used to do extra credit reports, and I hung out in the library.
I love you, DJ. That is just absolutely wonderful.
And so Warehouse 13 appealed to me because essentially the warehouse is just history's library. And of course, objects that have passed through history have magical properties because they get to tell you what was happening at the time and to who. And also, of course, I relate to the Mike character because she was a book nerd and I used to be. And I think they did a good job wrapping things up. They were very fortunate. They got to be on the take, not the take, but they knew the end was coming and they got to write endings in for their characters. They wrapped it up with a nice little bow, and we got to see Micah with the mousy curly hair maybe care a little bit more about herself. She was straightening her hair, she was doing her makeup a little bit more, dressing a little more provocatively. Not that you have to, but sometimes your outward appearance can be a reflection of your inner. And so that was one way that they showed the evolution of her character.
It's the same way that I rock the homeless look. DJ. No, really. Well, we got to wrap it up. We're getting at that time, aren't we?
We are.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you our next movie. I did select something, DJ, but
Okay.
so you liked Warehouse 13. So did I. What, if anything, do you have to recommend that if people like Warehouse 13, that maybe they'd like what? What would you suggest?
Okay, well, I've got a double hitter here. I've got two things that were both TV shows. Actually, I'm sorry. One was a TV show and a movie. I'm going to suggest a film that was made actually before Warehouse 13. It was from 2004, called The Librarian. And this was sort of the beginning of that idea that items in history could tell a story. And they later made a TV series of it before Warehouse 13 was off the air, and it was on TNT. So The Librarians, and it starred John Larroquette. And I will also give a nod, a recommendation to a 2-film series starring Nicolas Cage in a similar vein called National Treasure, where they're basically on a scavenger hunt to find artifacts that were important parts of history. And those were in 2004 and 2007.
Yeah, National Treasure was Nicolas Cage. It was a bit like Indiana Jones, was it not? Yeah, I've not seen that. Now, Warehouse 13 is often said to be, well, it's very Indiana Jones. And well, there's one episode where they went out of their way to do a very Indiana Jones episode, but the only comparison really is at the end of the first Indiana Jones movie, there's the shot of the warehouse where they're hiding the Ark of the Covenant. That's about it, folks. So aside from the one episode where they parodied and did a Raiders of the Lost Ark tribute, I'm not sure there's much else to compare. I'm going to suggest what we've already mentioned is Friday the 13th, the series. It was a fantasy horror television series, ran for 3 seasons in first run syndication. In other words, it wasn't a network thing. Any station could pick it up if they wanted it, and it would typically air late at night. And the series follows Mickey and Ryan, and they inherit an antique store, which ends up having been cursed, and they've got to account and give away all of these cursed antiques. I think that's the gist of it. But they work together to try to recover them. So there's a as we said before, a very specific relationship to Warehouse 13. It's kind of the same thing. Also, I'm just going to recommend again what I think is a better TV show, and that's the X-Files. And the two actors in that show carried the almost the entire number of seasons on the basis of how they interacted with one another, which is a huge part of the appeal of Warehouse 13. So if you like Warehouse 13, for heaven's sakes, you're gonna, if you haven't seen it, you're gonna like the X-Files. So there you go.
Okay. Well, Toppie, we've reached the end of our show. So we've wound out here in the lobby, and we're standing in front of the magical gumball machine. So if you could reach up there on the shelf and grab that bag of coins for me.
Okay, I got it. Here you go. Put it in there.
All right, we're going to fire this up. Okay, so the next time we get together is going to be a little bit further off because we got an early start in April. We only do this twice a month, first and third Friday. So the next time we gather, it's going to be Friday, May 7th. Toppie, go ahead and open that capsule for us.
All right, here we go. We did that sound effect live, folks. The next movie we're going to do is a true favorite of mine. It's a little obscure. It was made in 1976, and it was directed by Nicholas Gesner. It starred Jodie Foster and Martin Sheen. This movie is called The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane. It's a little weird. It's a bit of a thriller, a quiet thriller. It focuses on a 13-year-old portrayed by Jodie Foster who has absent parents. And she lives in a house by herself in a very conservative small town in Maine. So she tries to get everyone to believe that she's living there with her parents. Her parents are they're nowhere to be seen. And the movie is about what happens to her and some of the friends she makes. And it is very weird. It's a little controversial. And it's a great movie. And that's what we're going to do next time on Matinee Minutia, The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane.
I'm looking forward to that one. So we got a little bit of time to catch it. And if you are a member of our Facebook group, we might even share a way to find this next film if you want to do your homework with us. So, Toppie, if you'll look over the balcony, please, let us know who was in the chat room with us tonight.
We're really happy you guys joined us. We had Maren Gertz come in. We had Cronehaven come in for a bit. We've got our ever-present, always here, Aunt Tudor, always here, Tommy Hash Browns. We have Artie Cruiser, who came by, and we thank you so much for helping us out, being here in our live chat room and chatting it up with us.
Okay. So, what did that older couple on the radio say when it was time to say goodbye?
Well, you got to say, Say goodnight, Gracie. You got to say that.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.
Thank you for listening to Matinee Minutia. Our show streams live the first and third Friday of each month.
Go to univozpods.net, click the tower for audio, enter Discord for chat.
You can find this show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Tweet us on Twitter at Matinee Minutia.
Join our Facebook group.
Visit our webpage at matineeminutia.com.
Have an idea for a future show? Or just want to message us?
Email us at matineeminutia@gmail.com.
Oliver.
This has been an Olibug production.
I have a voice.
I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice.
We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
UniVozPods.net. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the video.